Romance. One of the most popular forms of media. A lot of people love this genre of storytelling. There's an endless number of stories and movies around romance, and that's no different when it comes to anime. But there's a lot of shows out there where the genre isn't romance, but the love is the driving force, indirectly having romance elements. When you think of it that way, it might make you wonder what makes a romance story, well, a romance story. One might say where the main goal is for the two main characters to get together, and I think that's a good answer, but I think it can still vary. And there's a lot of animes out there where the romance is a big part, but isn't what the story is as a whole. Take A Silent Voice for an example. The two main characters are Shoya Ishida and Shoko Nishimiya. Shoko moves into Shoya's school, and we find out that she is deaf, so she would often have to communicate through her notebook in sign language. But after a while, she ends up being bullied for it by her classmates, with Shoya being the main bully. Shoya regrets his decisions, and years later they reunite. And as they get to know each other more, they grow closer to one another and learn about themselves. With the way the film plays out and the relationship between the two characters, you could say it's a romance movie. And yeah, that could be said, but I feel like the deeper meaning and the point of the story is to be able to love yourself, which is what is shown in the end. It feels as if that's the bigger picture than just Shoya and Shoko getting together. So what would you say? Would the genre as a whole be considered romance? I personally feel like it's a mix of things, but saying the romance is not a big part would be a lie. So what romance anime is there where the genre is set in stone? Well, I think The Dangers in My Heart does things perfectly. The Dangers in My Heart aired on April 2nd, 2023, with the second season airing on January 7th, 2024. The protagonist is Kyotaro Ichikawa. He's a middle schooler, and at the start of the show is seen as quite a deranged person. He believes he's messed up in the head and wants to kill his classmates, but the one he wants to kill the most is Anna Yamada, and the story follows these two characters' lives. In the first few episodes, you might think of Ichikawa as a cringe weirdo, or maybe even a chunibyo. But after the first few episodes, you see more sides of him and understand his character, revealing that his murder fantasies aren't his whole personality. To be honest, he never really mentions it ever again after the first few episodes. It almost made me forget he was like that to begin with. But that's because of Yamada. On paper, this anime doesn't sound super special of any sort. You might think of it as another generic high school romance anime, and I had those thoughts myself when I started watching this series. You see, a friend of mine told me about this anime and said I had to give this a watch. With the way he talked about it and how passionate he felt, I kept on watching before giving any opinions. And boy was I in for something special. It's not exactly the plot that makes the series good, it's the execution. The execution is by far the best thing in this show. All the romantic sweet moments are done perfectly, and the two main characters actually develop, which I think is the second most important reason why this show is so good. After each episode, I genuinely feel like progress is being made every time. One thing people love in stories is seeing the progress pay off. It's like being rewarded for reading all the way to a certain point in the story, and it makes you want to see more and be rewarded with more progress. Here's an example of what doesn't make romance good. In Rent a Girlfriend, the two main characters, Kazuya and Mizuhara, are intended to be together by the end of the series. But time and time after again, it feels like the two characters are making great progress, but then the author does something that feels like a slap in the face and it feels like we're back in square one. It feels as if everything you watched was just a big waste of time. That's why The Dangers in My Heart is an actual good series. Never once does it feel like we're going backwards, and the romance progresses at a realistic amount. It isn't dragged out or milked just to keep the story going. Now I'll go more in depth on what I mean by the anime's beautiful execution. Every time there's a scene where the romance develops between the characters, the show goes all in on it, making every scene feel so sweet and adorable. It makes you want these characters to get together more and more as the episodes progress, and you see how more comfortable and open they are around each other. And just when I thought the first season was amazing, the second season was better in every way. I'll try not to get into spoilers, but it's one of those animes when you finish it just stays in your mind, like it's a part of you. I mean, it's like that to me at least. I hope I'm not crazy. The music also goes hard. The song Bokuwa as the opening for season 2 is unforgettable. One thing I love in anime openings are cool looking visuals that have meanings behind them. The opening also feels like a big step up compared to the first opening in season 1. And the OST is great too. Kensuke Yoshio was the composer for the Dangers in My Heart soundtrack. You might know his works from a few series like Chainsaw Man, A Silent Voice, and Dandadan, just to name a few. You should totally check out the OST, or at least any of his works. It's really something special. I believe music is a very crucial part when wanting to tell a story, because it makes us feel a certain way, and that's important when wanting to capture important moments. I think that's a perfect example how this anime nails the execution. If I had to summarize this show as a whole in one sentence, it would be beautifully written romance. A lot of romance anime nowadays are all getting similar and similar with each passing day, mostly because almost all of them are taking place in school. But even if the setting is pretty generic, if you nail the execution and have unique and well-developed characters, that'll make your romance story done right. It doesn't need to change the system or make anything over complex. The Dangers in My Heart is a perfect example of that. If you've made it to the end, thank you for sticking around. If you're looking to check out a great romance anime, then The Dangers of My Heart is for you. In the future, I'll talk about other romance animes and how they're written well. But anyways, subscribe if you want to see more, and Adachi out.